Hey y'all, this is Megan, and in this video, I am doing a tutorial on sewing the Sydney skort. The skort has a fuller and longer back skirt, and then it has attached shorties, and you can choose from 3 different inseam lengths. The shorties have no front seam, and they also have optional side pockets. You can also make the shorties alone without the attached skirt if you would like. The first step is going to be to take your main waistband pieces, the front and the back, and you are going to place them right sides together, and you are going to stitch them with a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each side. Now the back waistband is wider than the front because the side seams aren't on the side, they actually are more towards the front. The front skirt is smaller and then the back skirt wraps around and is fuller. After you sew the 2 main pieces together at each side, you are also going to do the same thing with your lining waistband pieces. Placing the lining front and back waistbands right sides together and then stitching them at each side with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you are going to have your main waistband wrong side out and your lining waistband right side out. You're going to place the lining inside the main so that they are right sides together, and you're going to pin them together along the top, making sure to nest those side seams on the waistband. Then you're going to stitch the lining and the main waistbands together along that top edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You could add some 1/4 inch clear elastic to this seam if your knit doesn't have great recovery, or if you're not using an athletic knit and something like a rib knit, then this will help it from stretching out. Once that's sewn, you are going to press that seam toward the lining and you are going to understitch that seam. So you're pressing it towards the lining and you are going to top stitch, catching the seam under. I like to use a longer triple stitch here. You do want to use a stretch stitch or your cover stitch because this seam does need to stretch to get over your hips. Then you are going to press the lining toward the wrong side, and you can baste the bottom of the waistbands together if you would like. Just note that the lining waistband is slightly shorter in height so that it pulls to the wrong side while you're wearing it. You can set your waistband aside for a moment while we work on our skirt. Grab your back skirt and your front skirt, and you are going to place them right sides together, and you are going to pin them together on each side. And then you are going to stitch the front and back together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Next, it's time to hem the bottom of the skirt. If your athletic knit doesn't hold a press, then what I like to do is use a basting stitch to stitch a 1/2 inch away from the skirt hemline, like I'm doing here. My video cut off, but I just based around the entire hem of the skirt, and then it gives me something to fold over, and it makes hemming this circular skirt easier. But you're going to press a 1/2 inch toward the wrong side along the entire bottom hem, and then you are going to edge stitch it in place using your cover stitch or your sewing machine. Then you can give the hem a nice press, and if you did run a basting stitch to help hem the skirt, then go ahead and pull those basting stitches out. And then you can set your skirt aside while we work on our shorties. If you are adding the side pocket, then the first step is going to be to press the top edge to the wrong side by 1/2 inch and then top stitch it in place to hem. And if you're adding 2 pockets, then go ahead and do that on the other pocket piece as well. Then you are going to lay your side shorty panel right side up, and you are going to place the pocket directly on top, aligning those notches and the raw edges. and you are going to baste the pocket to the side panel along the pocket edge about a 1/4 inch from the raw edge. Then repeat that with the other pocket and panel piece. Then you're just going to treat those as one piece, and you're going to attach the side pieces to the front shorties. You're going to align the notches and the raw edges, and you are sewing the panel to the front using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you want to, you can press the seam toward the center and top stitch if you'd like. And you do the same thing on the other side so that both panels are sewn to the front. Then it's time to attach the back pieces to the side panel. So again, you are aligning the raw edges and matching up those notches with the right sides together. And you are going to sew each back piece to the side panel, again using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then pressing the seam toward the back and top stitching if you'd like. Once the back pieces are sewn on, then you should have all the pieces together in one long piece. And now we're going to attach the gusset to the front. So I'm finding the center front quickly by just folding it in half and placing a clip there. And I'm going to do the same thing with the gusset piece. I'm going to fold it in half to find the center and placing a pin there. The front of the gusset is going to be the side without the notches. So I'm going to take that gusset piece and I'm going to place it right sides together, matching that center clip. And then you're going to match the edges of the gusset to the edge of the front shorty, and you're going to pin it in place. And you're doing the same thing on the other side, slightly easing in the gusset, but you shouldn't have to ease it too much. If you're really having to stretch it, make sure that you cut the gusset with the stretch going in the correct direction, and also that you cut the correct inseam length. Then you're going to sew the gusset to the front using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once that is sewn, then this is what it will look like. You can press that seam toward one side. I like to press it toward the gusset piece, and you can top stitch it in place if you'd like. Then you need to place your two back pieces right sides together, aligning that back crotch curve, and you are going to stitch them together, the two back pieces along that curve using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then it's time to attach the gusset to the back piece. So again, I'm going to fold the gusset in half to find the center. And the center of the back is that seam that you just made. So you're going to match those together, then match the end of the gusset to the end of the inseam on your back piece on each side, placing a clip there. And then you are going to sew the gusset to the back pieces using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Those notches aren't matching to anything on this back gusset piece. It's just so that you know which side attaches to the back pieces. Then it's time to hem the bottom legs on your shorties. So you're going to press a 1/2 inch to the wrong side on each leg, and you're going to top stitch it in place and then give it a nice press. Then it's time to attach your skirt to your shorties. So you're going to want to quarter the waistline of both the shorties and the skirt, and you are going to place the skirt over the shorties. Both sides should be right side out, and you are going to match those quarter points and clip the waistline of your skirt to the waistline of your shorties. Now these should match perfectly. You shouldn't have to stretch one or the other really at all. The circumferences of the waist should be the same. After you have it all pinned together, then you are going to baste that skirt to the shorties about a 1/4 inch from the raw edge. Then you are going to treat that as one piece, and I'm going to quickly find the center, front, and back of the waistline by just matching the side seam, and then the center back is the center back seam on the shorties. And then it's time to attach the waistband. So you're going to flip your waistband wrong side out, and you're going to place it over the skirt so they are right sides together, and you are going to match the back center and the front center, and then the seam on the waistband should match the seam on the skirt. You can nest those seams if you would like, and you can either baste the waistband first just so you make sure that all the seams are matching up, or you can go ahead and just sew the waistband to the skirt and shorties at once. And you are going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. Then you're just going to press that waistband up, and your Sydney skort is all complete. If you have any questions, you can leave them down below and I will try to answer them. As always, if you make a Sydney, then I would love to see it. Please post it in my Facebook group or tag me on Instagram at Made for Mermaids, hashtag Made for Mermaids Patterns, hashtag Sydney Pattern.